AOC says that she might have to ditch her Tesla after getting into a fight with Elon Musk. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. The economy. Economists went back to try to tell us that the economy was growing, and it turns out that, no, it actually shrank by another 0.2%. So we'll talk just a bit about that for quarter one. In other news, more details come out about the shooting in Uvalde, including the fact that the shooter was shooting for 12 minutes before he entered the school, and parents were begging the cops to go in there after them. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that and where that goes. And finally, we do have a mess of things that we have not been able to get to throughout the week here. So we'll go over some of those, including the fact that Barack Obama is trying to make this shooting tragedy all about George Floyd. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome to election season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and, well, just because of the stuff that's stacked up over the week, we've got a lot to go over today. So we're going to try to get through all of it here. We're going to try not to spend the entire show just talking about Uvalde, which is good because we actually have some economic news. We'll have an extended economic segment over here today. We'll be talking about the housing market, how that one's cooling off, how people are panicked selling their houses to try to get in on the panicked market here. We'll be talking about all this over here on Contemporary. But before we get started, make sure you go check out the Turns of Pages Productions programs, the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Porch Boys. Go check all of those out. We are working on getting a website started so we can go and help them grow and help ourselves grow as well. Which, by the way, I just want to say thank you to all the growth that we are seeing over here on the morning show. I look at the numbers. I see new viewers. I see new people following every day over on Twitch. One of the things is I don't usually read the live chat throughout the show, but I do see where the growth is coming from. I watch the little number on the bottom of the chat counter here, and, we start off the day with 4 people watching, and we end the day with, we're brushing on 20 just about every week. So I see the growth in the names in the book, which, by the way, do keep in mind, remember, today, bring out your best live chats, your spiciest stuff, the best stuff you can find here, because we are going to be looking at some of the live chat at the end of the show today as well. So go and check that out. But I appreciate what you guys are doing. I know it's a little bit interesting to try to pull people away, and this is what we're competing with, is the AM radio on the morning commute right now. Which I should probably clean up my language a little bit, because some of the people are listening to the AM radio with the kids in the car while they're taking them out to school. But that's our main competition right now, is the AM radio. There's nobody else that's doing news and politics online at this hour, so more word of mouth, more people telling other people about what's going on here. More people telling other people, hey, you can either sit here and lurk because we know that you're driving, or you can come back in and chat with us too. This is awesome, and this is a great time. I'm glad to see you guys here, but we've got to get started over here on Contemporary. So let's go check that out. Looking at the Dow, the market went up yesterday. In fact, most of the markets went up throughout the day yesterday, in spite of the economic news that we got out of the government, the executive branch going back to try to say, did it really shrink? Did the GDP really shrink? Yeah, it turns out it did, and worse than they thought. So we'll be talking just a bit about what we were at with there. But the Dow is starting the day up to 32,637.19. The Bitcoin did not fare as well throughout the day yesterday, including just after we looked at it, a very significant drop intraday. 1:30 p.m. my time, it was down to 28,213.70, and it crawled its way back, and it got up almost up to the 30,000 mark again, but it's kind of stumbled its way back down into the high 28,000 mark again. So it's moving. People are buying the dip when it dips, but it's sitting steady right now. It's going to be a while. We're going to have to go and claw out of what we're seeing with the GDP, the joblessness, and the high gas prices before we go back to see our 64,000 Bitcoin. So we will continue to watch that and see where that goes. And on the gas, the fuel prices. Your last check-in with the fuel prices before we go into the holiday weekend. In Madison, Wisconsin, we see more 405s across the board. Almost all of them are in Sun Prairie. Correction, they're all in Sun Prairie. So that's what we see off of that. The Fleet Farm and DeForest is at 409. Once we get into Madison proper, the Quick Trip on University Ave, the one on Mineral Point Road are both at 413. The Woodman's is at 413. We're not seeing any 414s or 415s anymore, but this is what we're going to be looking at as we go into the weekend. And it is federal law. They can't jump the prices for another 24 hours after this. So once they're set, we'll see them for a day at a time. It's a little bit of relief, but not much. But we'll continue to watch this and see where this goes. And we will look at this on Memorial Day itself, on Monday, as people are driving home from their vacations. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow futures rise after big market rally. Here's what to do now. Dow futures tilted higher Friday morning, while the S&P and the Nasdaq rose modestly. The stock market rally had a strong Thursday, fueled by positive reactions to earnings. Dollar Tree, Williams-Sonoma, and Macy's had strong results and at least solid guidance, but even more encouraging, Burlington and Nvidia moved higher despite the weak forecasts. That suggests that markets are pricing in bad news from cost pressures, supply chain issues, and wavering customers. Lithium plays Albemarle and Livent blasted through resistant areas, flashing buy signals. Delta rallied above an aggressive entry, while Ashland Global Holdings and W.R. Berkeley moved above early buy points. Costco Wholesale, Ulta Beauty, and Zscaler reported after the close. Costco earnings were in line, while sales just edged past fiscal quarter 3 estimates. Shares fell 2% in pre-market trading after closing up 5.65% on Thursday. Ulta Beauty earnings easily beat, with revenue up 21%. Ulta stock jumped 8% overnight, signaling a gap above the 200-day and 50-day lines. Shares already rebounded 7.1% in Thursday's session. Zscaler earnings modestly beat, with cybersecurity firm also giving up upbeat guidance. Z stock rose 4% in early Friday trade. Shares bounced 7.2% on Thursday, but are still close to an 18-month low. Albemarle is on the IBD leaderboard. ASH is Thursday's IBD stock of the day. WRB is Tuesday's stock of the day. On the futures, Dow futures were up less than 1%, or 0.1% rather. S&P climbed 0.2%, and the Nasdaq advanced 0.45%. The 10-year yield declined 3 basis points to 2.73%. Crude fell 1%. The Commerce Department will release April income and consumer spending report at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, offering a broad look at the health of consumer spending. The report's inflation gauge is the Fed's favorite. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So there is that. That's what we're seeing off that. Before we get into the main news of the day, we're actually going to look at an op-ed from CNN talking about what we could be seeing within the next year, and of course going on into the year following that. Perspectives, opinion, it's time to prepare for a recession. And I pushed back on what CNN had to say about that. Because I said, and you guys know, most of you are faithful, most of you have been watching this program since launch, that no, the time to prepare for the recession was in January of 2021, when we started hearing the inklings coming out that we were going to have a $20 trillion spending bill that's been pared back to $1.75 trillion, although it's still stalled out in the Senate. When we started to hear about the fact that we were going to have $3 trillion in infrastructure that got pared back to $1.5 trillion, money that we didn't have. Once we started hearing rumblings that North Korea wanted to go start firing off missiles, that we wanted to stay in Afghanistan for 6 months longer, that we wanted to see what was going on with Ukraine, that was the time to start preparing for a recession. I've been preparing. I learned how to can. Actually, I learned how to can long before this, but I ramped it up and I learned how to can many, many more things so I can keep myself going. And I'm actually looking at getting a pressure canner so I can start canning up some meat as well. Some meat and some fresh vegetables, not just pickled vegetables, because it's time. It's here. And anything you can pick up around the cheap and preserve for a long time, with or without refrigeration. I've got vegetables and meat stacked in the freezer. Canned Spam for the just in case when it gets too desperate. Plenty of pickled garlic, obviously. I know everyone loves my pickled garlic. But yeah, it was the time a year and 4 months ago to start preparing for a recession. This is from Lakshman Ashuthan and Anirban Banerjee for CNN Business Perspective. The economy is close to entering a recession, perhaps as soon as this year. To avoid taking too much of a financial hit, Americans will need to prepare. Last summer, we wrote that U.S. economic growth was already starting to slow and the economy would keep decelerating in the coming months. That is already proving to be true, with the year-over-year GDP growth declining from 12.2% in the second quarter of 2021 to 3.5% in the first quarter of this year. Are you kidding me? Right away, this article is a lie, and we'll be talking about that at 3.5% in the first quarter of this year. No. It declined 1.5%. The Commerce Department commonly cites the GDP growth as the annualized percentage change from one quarter to another, but those numbers tend to gyrate much, much more than the year-over-year figures. Nevertheless, both data points show the slowdown in economic growth to be 2021 and 2022. And there's a toxic brew of external economic headwinds, including the war in Ukraine and COVID in China, resulting in supply shocks that boost inflation and slow growth. A key part of the inflation problem is linked to the massive $3.9 trillion fiscal stimulus injected into the economy in 2020 and 2021, alongside well over $100 billion in bonds the Federal Reserve was buying each month since the height of the pandemic. Of course, when economic slowdowns take hold, it makes sense for the Feds to try to shore up economic growth by cutting interest rates, but in this case, the Fed is trying to make up for failing to react to inflation sooner. We warned last year that inflation was getting out of hand. The central bank should have taken action last summer. I don't disagree with that. I've disagreed with almost every point that I've disagreed with half the points so far, but I don't disagree with that one. Now the Fed has little choice but to tighten policy by aggressively hiking rates to curb inflation. That material increases the risk of pushing the economy into a full-blown recession. It was only 6 months ago the Fed began slowing its asset purchases, and it finally started rate hikes just 2 months ago. But at that overall point, inflation had already shot up to a 40-year high, impacting Americans in every corner of the country. For the average investor, it's hard to find a place to hide. Recessions are usually accompanied by outright bear markets, with stocks falling by well over 20%, and often by much more. And with the Fed now hiking rates aggressively, the bond market is no safe haven. Equities and bonds are riskier than usual, and surging inflation means that even cash under the mattress is losing its purchasing power. And that's just it. Like, when I was poor, when I was at my lowest, it was take the check to the check casher, pay them the 10% so I'd have the cash on hand, because if it went into the bank, it was gone almost immediately. going to the grocery store and crying when a quarter of what I was taking home went into my weekly trip. Looking outside in one of the worst neighborhoods in Kenosha and wondering if I was going to go out and find my tires slashed, my window broken, the gas taken out of the tank out of my truck. I've been at the bottom before. And I've sworn to myself that I'm never going to get there again. You know, right now, as most people know, I'm looking at trying to get myself into a side hustle, which you should do as well. Find something to do so, hoping and praying that the economy doesn't hit you. And if I do start to falter, I will have enough of a fan base where I'm not expecting you guys to hold me up and hold me up onto the lifestyle I was accompanied to under Trump, but at least keep me with roof over my head and food in my mouth and nothing else extravagant. I'm looking at all these things, wondering if I'm going to have to sell my truck. Wondering if I'm going to have to go back to mom and dad. Anything like that. I'm looking at a lot of these things right now. But also making sure, again, there's plenty of fresh vegetables, frozen vegetables, canned vegetables. Grab a can of Spam every time you go to the store. Just get it now while it's cheap and while you still have an option. So, and like I said last year, the time to do this was January of last year, not now. So that's what we see coming off of that. I'm going to drop this back just a little bit more. All right, and with that, we get into the main news of the day. We're actually going to start with a couple society things, a couple cultural things. Number one, starting from CNN, Ray Liotta, Goodfellas star, is dead at 67. That's one of the few movies I have seen. I've seen that one. From Lisa Respers France and Chloe Melas. Ray Liotta, an actor known for his roles in Field of Dreams and the Martin Scorsese mob classic Goodfellas, has died. He was 67, which, I mean, he wasn't that old, so... Ray was working on a project in the Dominican Republic called Dangerous Waters when he passed. He passed in his sleep. He's survived by his daughter Carson and his fiancée, J.C. Natolo. His publicist, Jennifer Allen, told CNN. Born in Newark, Liotta was the adopted son of Alfred and Mary Liotta, who also adopted a daughter, Linda. He attended Union High School, where he excelled in sports, and went on to attend the University of Miami. He studied drama and was cast in his first play, Cabaret. Following college graduation, Liotta moved to New York City, where he got work in the commercials and was cast as Joey Perini in the daytime soap opera Another World, which he appeared in from 78 to 81. His performance as crazed ex-con Ray Sinclair in the 1986 Jonathan Demme film, Something Wild, proved to be a breakthrough role for the actor. Liotta followed that with an acclaimed performance as baseball player Shoeless Joe Jackson in the box office hit Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. That one I haven't seen. His most memorable role, perhaps, was as a real-life mobster Henry Hill in the 1990 film Goodfellas, which cast him opposite heavy hitters De Niro and Pesci. Yeah, I've seen that one. That was a good one. Lorraine Bracco, who co-starred with Liotta's wife in Goodfellas, or as Liotta's wife in Goodfellas, paid tribute to him on Thursday. I'm utterly shattered to hear this terrible news about my Ray, Bracco said in a tweet. I can be anywhere in the world and people will come up and tell me their favorite movie is Goodfellas. And then they always ask what was the best part of making that movie. My response has always been the same. Ray Liotta. When asked by The Guardian in 2021 why he never worked with Scorsese again, and given the director's propensity for using some of the same actors in different projects, Liotta responded, I don't know. You'd have to ask him, but I'd love to. Not that he didn't find plenty of work over the years. Liotta's many film and television credits include John Q, Blow, Operation Dumbo Drop, Hannibal, Wild Hogs, and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. That's right, he was in that. More recently, Liotta narrated the TV docuseries The Making of the Mob and starred in The Many Saints of Newark, the prequel film to the hit television mob series The Sopranos. Haven't seen that one, haven't seen The Sopranos. He played plenty of tough guys, but that was not Liotta's true persona. I've never even been in a fight at all, except for during sports, and that's just pushing and goofy kid stuff, he told People magazine last year. Ray was the epitome of a tough guy who was all mushy on the inside. I guess that's what made him such a compelling actor to watch, said Jennifer Lopez, who starred with Liotta in the TV cop series Shades of Blue. We enjoyed doing our scenes together, and I felt lucky to have him there to work with and to learn from. Like all the artists, he was complicated, sincere, honest, and very emotional. She wrote Thursday on Instagram. Like a raw nerve, he was so accessible and so in touch in his acting that I will always remember our time fondly. We lost a great today. Liotta was currently cast in multiple projects according to his IMDb profile. Among them was Cocaine Bear, a thriller directed by Elizabeth Banks about what happens after a drug runner's cocaine disappears in a plane crash and gets eaten by a bear. The movie is due next year. I don't know why, but that sounds really good. That sounds really cheesy, but really, really good. But that is what we see off of that. That is, again, for somebody who rarely watches movies, I recognize this name. I recognize this guy and his body of work. I've seen some of his movies. I thought he was really good in them, but the world did lose a great, so that's what we see with that. And of course, the Twitter drama continues from Insider. The Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez says she's thinking about getting rid of her Tesla after a Twitter feud with Elon Musk. From Tom Porter. This right here is the proof in the pudding that all these stupid leftoids loved Elon Musk before he started doing things that they didn't want him to do. From Tom Porter. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez said she's considering getting rid of her Tesla, with the remark coming after a frosty Twitter exchange with Elon Musk. The Twitch Democrat who championed the green nude eel to combat climate change and renew the economy, or to redistribute wealth from the rich people to the poor people, told Bloomberg that she wanted an electric vehicle made by a company that allowed employees to unionize. He's a billionaire, puppy. I could care less what he thinks. She said that back in 2020 when she bought a Tesla Model 3 to commute between her Bronx and Queens district and Washington, D.C. At the time, this was the only EV that could get me from New York to Washington in like 1 or 1.5 charges. I would love to switch, okay, puppy? Ocasio-Chavez tweeted in late April, "Tired of having to collectively stress about what explosion of hate crimes is happening because some billionaire with an ego problem unilaterally controls a massive communications platform, okay?" "Stop hitting on me. I'm really shy," Musk responded. Ocasio-Chavez initially said she was referring to Zuckerberg, but later deleted the tweet. She said, then reposted a screenshot of the exchange, adding, "Like I said, ego problems, okay, puppy?" Musk has, in recent weeks, attracted the criticism of some liberals over suggestions that he will roll back Twitter's content moderation policies if his $44 billion takeover bid of the platform is successful. At a recent conference, Musk also said he would be voting Republican after having voted Democrat in recent elections, saying he opposed Democratic views on restricting free speech. And that's probably what tipped it over. "Okay, puppy, I buy your car. I buy an electric car, and not a lot of mega people are buying electric cars. So you have to cater to me." And then it turns out, I'm going to vote Republican for the first time in my life. And okay, now I have to sell my Tesla. Who wants a good used Tesla that was owned by a socialist, okay, puppy? So that is what we see off of that. All right, back into the finance news. As promised at the top of the show, first quarter GDP declined 1.5%. Worse than thought, jobless claims edge lower, from Jeff Cox. Yeah, we had the CNN article, the op-ed. "Oh, well, GDP growth was 12.5% in the summer of 2021, but it dropped to 3.5% in the first quarter of 2022. Bullshit! That's funny too, because they were expecting it to grow by 1.5%, and they analyzed it. They tried their damnedest to get it back up to 1.5%. They said, "Oh yeah, well, I remember when they were predicting it when it was first in April. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go look and we're gonna find out what the GDP grew. We think it's only gonna be 1.3%. Nope, 1.1% shrink. Oh, we're gonna look at this again. I guarantee if we go and look at the numbers again, we can go find better numbers. We can find that it grew at 1.5%. Nope, drop by 1.5%. You should have stuck with your first numbers. From Jeff Cox. The U.S. economic contraction to start the year was worse than expected as weak business and private investment failed to offset strong consumer spending, the Commerce Department reported on Thursday. First quarter GDP declined at 1.5% annual pace, according to a second estimate from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. That was worse than the 1.3% Dow Jones estimate, and a write-down from the initially reported 1.4%. It was 1.1% initially reported. Just so you know. Downward revisions for both private inventory and residential investment offset an upward change in consumer spending. A swallowing trade deficit also subtracted from the GDP total. The pullback in GDP represented the worst quarter since the pandemic-scarred quarter 2 of 2020, in which the U.S. fell into a recession spurred by government-imposed economic shutdown to battle the pinko fucking pox. GDP plummeted 31.2% in that quarter. Economists largely expect the U.S. to rebound in the second quarter as some of the factors holding back growth early in the year subside. A surge in the Ermagerd variant slowed activity, and the Russian attack on Ukraine aggravated supply chain issues that had contributed to a 40-year high in inflation. CNBC's Rapid Update survey shows the median expectation of 3.3% growth in the second quarter. Atlanta Fed's GDP Now tracker also points to a rebound, but at a more subdued 1.8% pace. This year will be mixed. Declines should not be repeated, but growth will not match what has been seen since the economy began reopening, said Scott Hoyt, Senior Director at Moody's Analytics. With the Federal Reserve seemingly totally focused on bringing inflation back down, recession risks are uncomfortably high, although perhaps more for the next year than this. One factor helping propel growth is resilient consumer fighting through inflation that's accelerated 8.3% from a year ago in April. Consumer spending, as gauged by personal consumption expenditures, increased 3.1%, better than the first estimate of 2.7%. That has come as the labor market has continued to be strong and wages are increasing rapidly, though still below the pace of inflation. Okay, so your consumers are spending 3.1% more, but you've devalued the dollar by 8.5% year over year. These are not the numbers that you're looking for with this. Initial jobless claims for the week ended May 21st totaled 210,000, a decrease from the previous 218,000 Labor Department reported. Continuing claims are around their lowest level since 1969, edged higher for the week ended May 14th to nearly 1.35 million, but yet we still won't come back and talk about the fact and talk about what the labor participation rate is right now. But that's what we see coming from that. From Axios, the real estate frenzy is over. From Emily Peck. Looks like America's home buying binge is winding down. There's a buy shift visible in both the official data and the anecdote data from sellers, buyers, and brokers. This is just what Jerome Powell ordered. The slowdown means the Fed's rate hikes are working, cooling demand in an overheated market. The buyers just stopped buying, said Shauna Pendleton, an agent with Redfin in Boise, Idaho, until recently one of the hottest markets in the country, Californication as she called it, drove an influx of buyers from the West Coast flush with cash courtesy of also formerly booming stock market. Some listings now sit for weeks without even a showing, she said, like this 4-bedroom priced at $899,000, 42 days without a look-see. In Dallas-Fort Worth, Redfin agent Robin Glacier said 5 people showed up to an open house last weekend. Previously, there would have been a line out the door. It's a completely different market now, said Glacier, who works with homes priced around $400,000. The change is a boon for some buyers, like those relying on FHA loans that require only 3.5% down, she said. In the old times, they were outbid by cash buyers who now have vanished. New home sales plunged for April, falling 16.6% from March to 591,000, well below economists' forecast of 750,000 according to data out Tuesday. It's the slowest pace since April 2020, when the economy froze for a minute before the boom again. Existing home sales, perhaps a better measure of the U.S. market since it's a much larger segment, is also trending down, falling for 3 straight months according to the National Association of Realtors. Mortgage rates have soared since March, with the 30-year now hovering around 5.25%, the highest it's been in years. Meanwhile, new housing supply is building. Available inventory of unsold new single-family homes jumped by 8% in April to 444,000, a 13-year high. The real estate market has been, technically speaking, bananas since the Pinko Pox, as the rise of remote work and super low mortgage rates send more people looking to upgrade their living space. The surge in demand fueled bidding wars and all kinds of wild activity, buyers waiving inspections or begging sellers to pick them, for example. Now buyers are less conciliatory as far as giving whatever we want on the sell side, said Glacier, the Texas agent. The party is over, Ian Shepherdson, chief economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics, wrote in a research note on Tuesday. We're going 90 miles an hour down the highway, and then we took our foot off the gas, Michael Simonson, CEO of Altos, a real estate analytics firm, tells Axios. There are a few things that are going along with this. One of the big things is, as we found out, and Axios won't tell you about this, but as we found out last year, part of the bidding war that went with this was a government investment firm, BlackRock, and a few other investment firms as well, but BlackRock was the one that got the most attention, going out and offering $100,000 overprice for homes in prime areas, going into the cities, going into places like Madison, Milwaukee. In prime neighborhoods, they were offering $100,000 over because they wanted to corner some of the rental market or corner some of what was going up on some of the pricing. Resell at a higher price off of this. Now that fewer people are looking, that market has slowed down for them, and that's part of what's keeping stuff on the market for as long as it is. Plus, as noted, the GDP shrank by 1.5%. Unemployment may be taking down, yes, but loss of the labor market, people just staying out of the labor market, that's affecting this. The people that had the money to move have moved. The people that don't have the money to move are sitting pretty or losing their houses. So that's where we're at with that. One more about that. From CNBC, home listings suddenly jump as sellers worry they may miss out on the red-hot housing market. From Diana Olick. Yeah, that's a part of the other problem is people are trying to jump in at the last second. Like, oh, we'll wait. It'll just go higher. It'll just go higher. And now it's not going higher, and now they're just sitting there like, shit. I didn't want to live in this house forever, but now I'm never going to get what I want out of it. Because there's so much competition on the seller side. Sharply higher mortgage rates have caused the sudden pullback in home sales, and now sellers are rushing to get in before the red-hot market cools off dramatically. The supply of homes for sale jumped 9% last week compared to the same period a year ago, according to Realtor.com. That's the biggest annual gain in the company has recorded since it began tracking the metric in 2017. Redfin also reported that new listings rose nearly twice as fast in the 4 weeks ended on May 15th as they did during the same period a year ago. Rising mortgage rates have caused the housing market to shift, and now home sellers are in a hurry to find a buyer before the demand weakens further, said Redfin chief economist Daryl Fairweather. Sellers clearly see the market softening. Pending home sales, a measure of signed contracts on existing homes, dropped nearly 4% in April from March. They were down just over 9% on April 2021, according to the National Association of Realtors. This index measures signed contracts on existing homes, not closings, so it's perhaps the most timely indicator of how buyers are reacting to higher mortgage rates. It marks the 6th straight month of sales declines and the slowest pace in nearly a decade. So again, that's what we see coming off of that. That's where we're going to go with that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Talking about food, the fertilizer crisis impacting California farmers. From Charlotte Pence Bond. A fertilizer crisis is hitting American farmers and is likely going to disrupt the already tumultuous food supply and supply chain issues. The main issue impacting farmers is the price of fertilizer, which is hampering their efforts to produce crops for consumers. The impact will likely be felt by Americans in grocery stores in the following year. According to Axios' report from earlier this month, the fertilizer prices are reaching threateningly high levels. A report by the International Food Policy Research Institute from April showed that the market prices for food and fertilizer have gone up over the past year and a half, spiking even more. After Russia invaded the Ukraine, the prices increased 125% from January of 2021 to January of this year, and they hit their highest price in March, going up another 17% from January. A report from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas shows that expenses of fertilizer went up 90% and diesel rose 60% from the year before in February. Daily Wire spoke with Bill Diedrich, the president of the California Farm Water Coalition, who said that the mixture of the price of fertilizer, along with the issues surrounding water supply, reliability, and shipping, are making it extremely difficult for the small to medium-sized growers who don't have all the staff that other large businesses have. So the small family guys like myself that farm 500 to 1,500 acre range, it's going to be difficult to get through, he said. Diedrich says the price of energy going up, as well as it being less available, will cause nitrogen fertilizer prices to rise, because energy is a huge component of nitrogen fertilizer. According to Diedrich, many farmers in the state are just trying to stay in business rather than be profitable, specifically if they depend on nut crops or any other kinds of crops. The primary nutrients needed in fertilizer are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Phosphorus and potassium, which are mined, come from foreign areas. Diedrich noted that many of the mined products come from Russia, which the war in Ukraine has affected. He said that there's not much mining in any of these materials done in the U.S., and growers have to find other fertilizer sources. Diedrich pointed out how the supply is being regulated by the price. So, as price increases, growers have to cut back on how much they use. He said, sometimes suppliers will let them know ahead of time if the prices are going to go up, asking him if he wants to buy fertilizer before that happens. But the fact that we're using less and still scarce tells you the supply is definitely down, he said. He added that he believes Americans will especially feel the impact of the crisis in grocery stores next year, because the non-fresh products grown this year end up in grocery stores the following year. He said the ingredients used in processed items aren't being grown as much, and there will be a shortage of processed food. Pointing to the water crisis as well, he said in Northern California there are 300,000 acres of rice that are not being grown because of a lack of water. So pick up some rice now. And with that, that's the other aspect of the economy that we're seeing here. And we have one more that's kind of an aspect of the economy, but also something that I kind of thought was really funny. OnlyFans girls posting L's is out here. So there's a lot of stuff out here going on with OnlyFans, because that seems to be, and if the economy tanks again, if we go back into another recession, that's going to be a place where a lot of girls try to flock to, because, hey, you know, Men are thirsty, and they'll just come back and empty out their wallets for me because I'm pretty and because I'm a girl and because it's easy for them to come back out here and shell out a couple bucks a month to go see my boobs or something like that. Well, a lot of people are already starting to figure out that this is not the way that they should be going here. I heard about this on another YouTube video yesterday, and I thought that we should talk about it. Now, one of the things... Excuse me. I might have to step up for just a second. In fact, let me do that real quick, because this is getting bad. Allergy season just kicked back in again. Apologies for that. I knew when I woke up this morning allergies were going to be a problem. I knew that as soon as I sat up in bed. I'm like, ah, shit. We've had 2 really good days, and then all of a sudden we're back here. All right, going back and looking at this, the reason that I lumped this in with the economic side is one of the problems that I think a lot of these girls who think that this is going to be the easy money are going to come out and see. Now, typically when there's a lot of money flowing and the people who would subscribe to this are independently wealthy, typically they don't usually need to go back and run out to OnlyFans and go spend out their money. Some of them will go out there to try to find a sugar baby for reasons unknown. I mean, if you're going to treat a woman like that, marry her. But everybody's got a different lifestyle. It doesn't always work. But part of the reason that I look at this and I say that this is going to... This page is going to... Excuse me. This page is going to explode as everything drops back off and the economy drops back off, because when you start to run out of money, you start to lose out on expendable things. That's part of the reason that I'm not trying as desperately right now to transition this, what we're seeing here, into my only form of income just yet, because the arts are the first thing that take the hit. And while I analyze, and some people would say look at things scientifically, this is what I'm doing right now is the arts. But there are these girls out there who think that, oh, well, I can just, shake the tatas in a video a couple times a month, and I'll be independently wealthy. And a few of them are, by the way. But as we go on, we see more of them out there that are starting to realize just how sick and depraved, and unless they're like the pinnacle of hot, the people that are coming to them are either depraved themselves or want them to do depraved things, like this one. They made me drink my bobbit, peed on my face, and pooped in my mouth. Another Dubai porta potty story emerges. Despite regularly posting content, I haven't had a single custom request on OnlyFans in over 6 months. I lost more than 100 subs in the last 2 weeks. Maybe it's time to retire. I lost literally over half of my OnlyFans subs this month for saying I'm pro-abortion. Can you help me find new, cooler subs who believe we should have control of our own bodies? The ones they jack off to because my rent is due. Please, I'm cute and fun and panicking. Yeah, that's the other thing. These guys that are doing this, these depraved guys that are going off to this, you gotta be neutral on stuff like this. It's the same thing, and one of the things that I've noted as well, like on the outside. if I do go into real estate, nobody that I sell to is ever going to know that this channel exists. Because you got to be friends with everybody. Politically, you have to be, as the instructor said, you have to be Switzerland. You have to be able to come back out and say, oh yes, I support this policy or that policy, because somebody on there is going to ask you. And as this girl is finding out, that's sometimes a bridge too far to cross. But furthermore, I do think that there's a lot more of this where people are coming out and realizing, shit, I'm spending $50 a month to support people that I'm never going to go have dinner with. What the fuck am I doing? I could be using these $50 to put food on my table, or in some of the sicker cases, my kids' tables. Here's one. Brandon said if I made an OnlyFans, he would never talk to me again. Brandon found out I have an OnlyFans, and he hasn't spoken to me since. There are a few other things that go along with this, and outside of the economic aspect of it as well. Like, because of my proximity to Madison, I've known and met girls who have gone out and done the OnlyFans things, and while I still respect them as women, like, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's cool. That's free market capitalism. That's the way that you go back out and figure things out. The other side of that is, okay, well, you and I aren't doing anything together because I'm the jealous type, and I'm not really comfortable with me dating a girl who is out there throwing the ass around to try to get a couple measly bucks a month. And I think a lot of them are going to come to that realization as they go as well, that not a lot of men want to go out with a girl who is, for all intents and purposes, by the way, either a stripper or a prostitute. I know technically that's not the term that's placed onto it, but for all intents and purposes, that's what you're doing. Selling your body for cash. So that's what we see off of that. And if you guys want to see that, it is on Twitter at OnlyFans postin L, no G. OnlyFans postin L. Go and check that out. All right, let's go talk about Uvalde. We're going to start with Zero Hedge, which I don't usually use because it's not a green check verified source, but I thought that we could at least come back and look at this. Let's see if we can't piece together the timeline. And I haven't seen really any mainstream media outlets talking about this, but according to Zero Hedge, Valdez Shooter fired gun for 12 minutes outside school before entering. The gunman, who massacred 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, lingered outside for 12 minutes, firing shots at people at a funeral home across the street before scaling a fence onto school grounds, where he fired more shots. He then entered the school and barricaded himself in a classroom before opening fire, according to the Wall Street Journal. Victor Escalon, a regional director for Texas Department of Public Safety, said that he couldn't say why no one stopped the deceased gunman, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, from entering the school during that time on Tuesday. Most of the shots Ramos fired came during the first several minutes when he entered the school, Mr. Escalon said. DPS officials previously said that an armed school officer confronted Ramos as he entered the school. Mr. Escalon said Thursday that information was incorrect and no one encountered Ramos as he arrived at the school. There was not an officer readily available and armed, Mr. Escalon said. Ramos began Tuesday morning by shooting his grandmother in the face, using her truck to drive to the school, crashing in a ditch at around 11:28 a.m., according to a timeline laid out by Escalon. Texas law enforcement officials officially ignored pleas from distraught parents as a gunman was left alone for up to an hour at a Texas elementary school, killing 19 and 2 teachers before a Border Patrol agent charged into the school and killed the suspect. Go in there! Go in there! A woman shouted at police soon after the attack began, according to neighbor Juan Carranza, who told the Associated Press about the parents' efforts to get police to confront the shooter. Carranza said the officers did not go in. Minutes earlier, Carranza had watched as Salvador Ramos crashed his truck into a ditch outside the school, grabbed his AR, and shot 2 people outside a nearby funeral home. Shot at 2 people, he didn't kill them, who ran away uninjured. Officials say he encountered a school district security officer outside the school, though there were conflicting reports from authorities as to whether the men exchanged gunfire. After running inside, he fired on 2 arriving Valdez police officers who were outside the building, said Texas Department of Public Safety spokesperson Travis Considine. The police officers were injured, RCP reports. So, we're starting to see as more and more information comes out of this. Now, number one, my big question is, where are the body cams? Where are the dash cams? Where is some sort, a cell phone camera, something that gives us an actual timeline of what's going out there? You don't think in this sick fucking world that somebody was out there grabbing the cell phone and like, oh! Or the body cam, or the dash cam, something where we can actually piece this together other than word of mouth. But now he is actually out for, like they say, what, a good 12 minutes before? Out in the open, where some of these, quote, hero police officers could have taken a shot. And it took almost that hour for Border Patrol to get in there and clean shit up. Why, in a country that is supposed to be Federalist, are we expecting the federal government to come in and clean shit up? That's the opposite of the direction that we should be going right now. The federal government fucks things up. Now, whether or not this was the federal government fucking up and out by the federal government, we'll never know, because they're never going to come back out here. But this right here adds to the reason. And, you know, I said it a couple days ago when this all happened, when they tried to do the gun grabbing, which they'll be doing, and we'll be reading about that as well. But when they tried to do the gun grabbing, and they say, well, the shooter had an AR-15, so you need to have all your guns stripped from you. When they tried to pull that shit again. I look at this. 12 minutes out in the open outside the school. And an hour inside of the school. No, I'd like to keep myself armed, thank you very fucking much. So that when one of these miserable pigs fails to do his job, I can step in. So that's what we see off of that. Something from the inside, from NBC Dallas-Fort Worth. 11-year-old survivor of Uvalde massacre put blood on herself and played dead, aunt says. No author given. The family of an 11-year-old girl who survived the massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, at Tuesday says the 4th grader played dead after the gunman entered the classroom. Mia Cirillo's aunt and godmother said the 4th grader is struggling to cope and telling them what she witnessed during the shooting. Around midnight, my sister-in-law called me and said that she was just crying. Like, I think it's just hit Mia. I think everything just came to reality now, said Blanca Rivera. Rivera said Mia's teacher, Irma Garcia, was one of the 2 teachers killed. Her friends and classmates were also targeted. Rivera said that's when Mia went into survival mode. Mia got some blood and put it on herself so she could pretend that she was dead, said Rivera. It's too much for me to play that scene over and over again, but that's why my sister-in-law has said that she saw her friend full of blood and she got blood and put it on herself. Mia was injured but taken to the hospital and has been released. My brother said she had bullet fragments in her back, said Rivera. The mother of 3 said the family is rallying around Mia to help her recover physically, emotionally, and spiritually. At this point, we just have to pray and ask God to help us move forward through this situation. I know how traumatizing as it is, said Rivera. So, that's what they say coming back up off of that. Our friends over at NPR bring us one. Talking about the police there, NPR says, Uvalde parents question whether the police's response to the deadly school shooting. This is from Adrian Florido. This was heard on All Things Considered. And remember, in order to tell you about All Things Considered, NPR needs you to donate all of our money, comrade, to tell us, for us to tell you
what it is that we want you to hear and control the information properly. So hit that donate button. Taxpayer subsidies aren't enough. NPR, Never Printing Reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say.
Questions have emerged about the response to the attack in the Uvalde school. Parents want to know how the gunman was in the building for so long and question whether officers entered through the door. Sasha Pfeiffer, host, says, in Uvalde, Texas today, the community is beginning to cope with the unimaginable loss. 19 children and 2 teachers murdered by an armed gunman who entered Robb Elementary School on Tuesday outside the school. 21 white crosses have gone up. Each one is painted with the name of one of the victims. All-day mourners have arrived with flowers and stuffed animals and letters of condolence. But even as the community begins to process its grief, some families of the victims are angry. They say the police did not do enough to save their children, and that has forced the police to respond. Here's more with NPR's Adrian Florido, who joins us from Uvalde. Hi, Adrian. Hi, Sasha. Adrian, why do parents and family members feel the police response to the shooting failed? Well, you know, Sasha, we know that the shooter barricaded himself inside the elementary school classroom where he carried out the massacre, and one of the big questions until today was how long was he in there before police rushed in and killed him? Officials today said that it took about an hour to enter the classroom and shoot the gunman dead. And one of the things that we've been hearing from the family members of the victims who rushed into the school while the gunman was still inside is that they were begging police to go in and rush the shooter sooner. And they didn't understand why that wasn't happening. I spoke today with Lucinda Velasquez. She is the great aunt of 2 of the children who were injured but not killed in the massacre, and she told me that she rushed into the school when she heard what was happening. Listen to what she said. I was at the very front. All the cops were just there. All of them were just there in the front, and we're talking to shit to them to hurry up and move and go inside. And they said, y'all need to leave because they're shooting. Y'all need to go inside and do something. Stop him. How hard is it? They didn't do it. No, they didn't. She said there's a deep and growing feeling in the community here that the police failed, but they waited too long to go in after the shooter. Here's more of what she said. Velasquez, I live here 45 years. I haven't done nothing. Look at all these innocent little babies. Did they have to die because they didn't want to go inside? So that's the question that's on everyone's mind here, Sasha, is would more children have lived if the police had acted more quickly? That I don't know. And I'm actually going to stop and pull that off there because I don't know if that's actually the case. If more children, because apparently once he got inside, all the shooting was done within a couple minutes. And then they just stayed in there pacing like a wild animal after the fact. As far as I know with that, I mean, the time to do that would have been while he's out there shooting at a funeral home. Honestly, the time to do that would have been to clip him as he was getting out of the truck he just crashed. Because you know he just shot his grandmother. There's a reason you were chasing his ass. And you saw him grab the gun. You know he's armed. You know he's dangerous. And a part of me has to wonder right now is if some of this has to do with the fact that police are scared, especially, I don't know what the demographic makeup of the police is in Uvalde, but if it's a bunch of white cops, if they start shooting right away, no matter what the situation is, are they going to be the next Derek Chauvin? Are they going to be the next one that's sitting there? Am I going to be on trial? Am I going to be able to go home to my family because I shot a little brown kid? I have a lot of questions about this. But that's where we see sitting off of that. Let's grab one from Fox News. Uvalde school shooting. Ex-DC homicide detective demands answers on police timeline. Hey, so do I. Holy shit, I have something in common with someone in DC. What is happening in this world? From Fox News staff. Former District of Columbia Metro Police homicide detective Ted Williams called for answers on the true timeline of the Valdez school shooting after several conflicting stories were either put out by Texas officials or purportedly exposed through videotape. A CCTV camera, a dash cam, a body cam, something! Ted Williams says, "We do have to get this information, and we have to get it right. We need to know the truth of what took place. We were told yesterday in a press conference by the governor and the head of the Texas Rangers and the lieutenant governor and other officials that the first person to come in contact with this killer was a security officer at the back door. The back door we now learned was unlocked. We also know that there was no security officer, and we also know that by the time this guy got into the school and into that room, there were gunshots. Yeah, he'd already shot at people out in the open." So, yeah, absolutely. Let's get some answers. And this guy was in there for an hour. I'd like to think that about this, and I'd like our audience to think about this. You had 19 children that had been shot, and you had 17 or more that had been injured, and these kids were in there for an hour with this killer, and those who are now living, I'm sure, Tammy, they're scarred and perhaps scarred for life. And what should have happened is what happened 23 years ago. We learned a lesson at Columbine, and that is to go in, the law enforcement, and neutralize the person right away. That did not happen here. It didn't happen in Columbine either. They gave us false information yesterday, and as a result of that, unfortunately, some kids may have been saved. Absolutely. From the USA Today, Texas officials investigate whether police acted fast enough to stop shooter at a Valdez school. No, they didn't, clearly. From Tony Plohetsky and Kevin Johnson. Texas State Police launched an examination of law enforcement's response to the Uvalde school massacre, as officials acknowledged Thursday that the heavily armed gunman was never confronted by officers before entering the building, where he killed 19 children and 2 teachers in one of the deadliest campus attacks in U.S. history. Authorities walked back initial reports that an armed school resource officer had engaged the 18-year-old gunman, who made his way into the Robb Elementary School unchallenged through an unlocked door at 11:40 a.m. on Tuesday. The attacker barricaded himself in a 4th grade classroom that became a killing field. Victor Escalon, a Texas Department of Public Safety regional director, said an hour elapsed from the time the assailant entered until a tactical team was assembled to breach the classroom, where the gunman was killed by a specially trained Border Patrol agent. Under long-standing practice, the responding officers urged to confront active shooters immediately to prevent loss of life. That strategy became standard procedure after the deadly Columbine High School attack. During the chaotic period, Escalon said officers helped evacuate students and teachers from other parts of the school, while calls went out for more personnel and firepower. Asked whether officers should have stormed the classroom earlier, Escalon said, "That's a tough question, and authorities are still gathering information regarding the response." Should officers have stormed the classroom earlier? Yes. I've told this story before on the show, but of the failure of local police and even local SWAT teams. I grew up in a small town, 300-ish people. There are a few problems with a little bit of drugs going through there. Nothing major, but a few problems with a little bit of drugs and alcoholism and your basic small town stuff. There was one particular instance. In 1998. I remember this because this was the same summer that Phantom Menace was coming out. Because I remember the day that it happened. I was playing horse in the backyard. We had a basketball hoop in the backyard. I was playing horse with some friends. When somebody came out and said, so-and-so's dad went nuts, he's locked in the basement with a gun. And I remember the Phantom Menace because that was the same day that Pepsi had come out with their Phantom Menace promotion. It was the first time I'd seen them collect the caps for various prizes on the Phantom Menace board. That was the same day that I had seen that for the first time. That's the reason that's emblazoned in my memory. There was a baseball game my sister had to go to, and we went down there a couple towns away, and we came back, and this whole situation was still going on. Luckily, we didn't have to go down to that side of town to get to where the baseball game was, but yeah, the guy had gone nuts with a gun. The sheriff's deputies, the state patrol were out there,
yelling at him out there. They pulled the SWAT team down from the next biggest city. And after 4 hours, it took them 4 hours to go in there, get everybody tactically up there, tear gas, and go in shooting, guns blazing. And they found the guy. Now, all of his family had been out, but they found him there in the basement. Dead by suicide, and according to the autopsy report, he had been dead by suicide for well over an hour by the time they had stormed. From the way that I remember the story, they had held a dead guy for 4 hours in a standoff. But yes, at some point you should go in a lot sooner than you are, before other people go out and get hurt. From the Associated Press, Gunman's Final 90 Minutes, fuel questions about police delays from Jake Bleiberg, Jim Bertuno, and Elliot Spagat. It was 11:28 when the Ford pickup slammed into a ditch behind the low-slung Texas school, and the driver jumped out carrying an AR-style rifle. 12 minutes earlier, after that, authorities say 18-year-old Salvador Ramos was in the hallways of Robb Elementary School. Soon he entered a 4th grade classroom, and there he killed 19 schoolchildren and 2 teachers in a still unexplained spasm of violence. At 12:58 p.m., law enforcement radio chatter said Ramos had been killed, and the siege was over. What happened in those 90 minutes in a working-class neighborhood near the edge of the little town of Uvalde has fueled mounting public anger and scrutiny over law enforcement's response to Tuesday's rampage. They say they rushed in, said Javier Cazares, whose 4th grade daughter, Jacqueline Cazares, was killed in the attack, and who raced it to the school as the massacre unfolded. We didn't see that. On Thursday, authorities largely ignored questions about why officers had not been able to stop the shooter sooner, with Victor Escalon, regional director for the Texas Department of Public Safety, telling reporters that he had taken all those questions into consideration and would offer updates later. The media briefing, called by Texas safety officials to clarify the timeline of the attack, provided bits of previously unknown information, but by the time it ended, it had added the troubling questions surrounding the attack, including about the time it took police to reach the scene and confront the gunman, and the apparent failure to lock the school door that he had entered. Once again, I'm to the understanding they were chasing him, and they were there on the scene at the time when he started shooting. Because again, my big question is why that truck with the axle wrecked in it was sitting in the ditch, and why he was going, because he was booking when he got to that ditch. When he landed that truck in that ditch, he was moving a good 70 miles an hour. I promise you that. After 2 days of providing conflicting information, investigators say that a school district police officer was not inside the school when Ramos arrived, and contrary to the previous reports, the officer had not confronted Ramos outside the building. Instead, they sketched out a timeline notable for unexplained delays by law enforcement. After crashing his truck, Ramos fired on 2 people coming out of a nearby funeral home, Escalon said. He then entered the school unobstructed through an apparently unlocked door at around 11:40 a.m. But the first police officer did not arrive on the scene until 12 minutes after the crash, and did not enter the school to pursue the shooter until 4 minutes after that. Inside, they were driven back by gunfire from Ramos and took cover, Escalon said. Dude, this sounds like so much cover your ass bullshit. I don't believe a word of what's in here. The crisis came to an end after a group of Border Patrol tactical officers entered the school roughly an hour later at 12:45 p.m., said Texas Department of Public Safety spokesperson Travis Considine. They engaged in a shootout with a gunman who was holed up in the 4th grade classroom moments before 1 p.m. He was dead. I don't buy any of this. I don't buy word one of this. This sounds a lot like cover your ass bullshit. And again, it sounds to me a lot more like there were people outside that were outside on the scene as soon as this all started happening. So,
That's what we see coming back up out of that. From the New York Post. Cops handcuff mom amid Texas school shooting before she jumped the fence and ran inside to save her kids. From Ellie Griffin. A mom of 2 students at Robb Elementary says that she was handcuffed by officers as the shooter was still inside before she jumped the fence and ran into the schools to safely retrieve her children on Tuesday. Angeli Rose Gomez, a mother of a 2nd grader and a 3rd grader, told the Wall Street Journal she drove 40 miles to the Uvalde school and was one of the numerous parents begging and yelling at the officers to enter sooner to take out the 18-year-old gunman Salvador Ramos. After a few minutes, she said a U.S. Marshal placed her in handcuffs, stating that she was under arrest for intervening in an active investigation, according to the Journal. It took almost an hour before Ramos was killed by a specialized U.S. Border Patrol tactical team, authorities said. In that time, he gunned down 19 school children and 2 teachers. Gomez reorganized a few local Uvalde police officers and convinced them to tell the marshals to remove the cuffs. Once freed, she distanced herself from the crowd, jumped into the school fence and ran inside the school building and grabbed her 2 children. The 3 sprinted out of the school together. Gomez told the Journal she decided to charge the school herself as officers waited outside the building doing nothing. They were just standing outside the fence, she said. They weren't going in there, running, or anything. Was this before or after the idiot died? It's not entirely clear by the way this is written. The mom said she wasn't the only parent targeted by officers on the scene, which she described as chaos. She said she saw police tackle a father to the ground and pepper spray another. Officers tasered a 3rd dad, she said, when he approached the school bus with students on to collect his child. They didn't do that to the shooter, but they did that to us, Gomez told the Journal, referring to herself and other parents. That's how it felt. Yeah, that's probably not a good look for this either. They go after the presumably unarmed parents, but they can't go in and protect the children. So it does look like this was after the fact as well. That makes this look even worse. Alright. From NBC. More could have been done, witnesses question law enforcement response to Texas school shooting. From Marlene Lenthang, Tom Winter, and Kenneth Dillanian. When news of the elementary school shooting spread in Uvalde, the concerned parents and residents gathered on site where they said they begged law enforcement to charge into the building and considered entering themselves while the gunman was inside for at least 40 minutes. Since Tuesday's massacre, which left 19 children and 2 teachers dead, conflicting narratives have emerged about law enforcement response. Javier Cazares, the father of the 4th grader, Jacqueline Cazares, who died in the attack, said he ran to the school after he learned about the shooting and saw some officers still outside the building. Upset that authorities didn't appear to be moving into the building, Cazares said that he and other bystanders wanted to charge in themselves. Let's just rush in because the cops aren't doing shit like they are supposed to, he told the Associated Press, which he later confirmed with NBC News. More could have been done, Cazares said. They were unprepared.
She was full of life and love. She touched a lot of people. Recently, she had her first baptism and first communion.
How can you describe your daughter in a few words? How would you describe her?
She's full of love and full of life. And she would do anything for anybody. And to me, she's a firecracker, man. It comforts me a little bit to think that she'd be the one to help her friends in need there and then.
Yeah, there should have been way more done with this. There should have been way more done with this. At least an attempt of some sort. Let's talk about the government response to this, because that's always some good news. Senate GOP blocks domestic terrorism bill, gun policy debate. From Farnoosh Amiri and Lisa Mascaro. Democrats' first attempt at responding to the back-to-back mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde failed in the Senate Thursday as Republicans blocked a domestic terrorism bill that would have opened the debate on difficult questions surrounding hate crimes and gun safety. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tried to nudge Republicans into taking up a domestic terrorism bill that had cleared the House quickly last week after mass shootings in a grocery store in Buffalo and a church in Southern California targeting people of color. He said it could become the basis for negotiation. But the vote failed along party lines, raising fresh doubts about the possibility of a robust debate, let alone eventual compromise. The final vote was 47-47. Short of the 60 needed to take up the bill, all Republicans voted against it. "We're disappointed," said White House Press Secretary, token diversity hire. She said it was shameful that the National Rifle Association and others stood in the way of advancing such a measure, but encouraged Congress to press ahead. "The president has been very clear it's time to act," she said. Rejection of the bill came just 2 days after the mass shooting in a Texas elementary school that killed 19 children and 2 teachers brought into sharp relief Congress's persistent failure to pass legislation to curb the nation's epidemic of gun violence. It also underscored the prevalence of mass shootings in the U.S. as Congress struggled to react to earlier shootings, but was confronted by yet another massacre. I saw a meme the other day, or yesterday actually. Joe Biden, he's walking through the Arlington National Cemetery. But he's walking through with his mask on, and the caption on the top says, "How many more of your kids do I have to kill so you'll surrender your guns to me?" And they're trying to, like, the Associated Press is trying to get the country to react on emotion rather than logic, and rather than looking at a bill that is a way for Congress to look at you, who would watch this program, at me, who would put on this program, people who would own rifles, who would own these kinds of weapons, for their own self-defense, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, as domestic terrorists. And good on Republicans for coming off and breaking this. From CNN. We're actually not going to do this one because this is the same as the other one. From The Blaze, Schumer gets torched online for adjourning Senate for Memorial Day recess after blocking GOP school safety bill. So Schumer blocked the school safety bill, which, again, I don't agree with. I think that should be a local thing. But Schumer blocked that bill for reasons. Reasons unknown, they say. But he wants to go forward with a bill considering people who would own a gun as domestic terrorists. From Carlos Garcia, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was torched online for allowing the U.S. Senate to adjourn into Memorial Day recess after blocking the passage of a Republican bill on school safety. Schumer tried to excoriate Republicans for resisting gun control regulation in the wake of a horrific school shooting in Texas, but many thought it was a toothless attack when Democrats went on a week-long break. The Democratic leader claimed that he wanted to give negotiations a chance to work out before forcing a vote on gun control. If these negotiations don't bear any fruit, the Senate will vote on gun control safety legislation when we return. But our hope, even amidst our deep skepticism, is that this week Democrats and Republicans, at long last, will come to agree on something meaningful that will reduce gun violence in a real way in America, Schumer said in a speech on the Senate floor. He's also implied that there will be no gun control legislature and that people should vote in November for Democrats instead. And that's actually what's going to happen, I promise you. He's going to come out, he's going to hold a symbolic vote and say, okay, all Republicans blocked this, so we need to have 100 votes in the Senate. You need to turn it around for all of us. Otherwise, you're never going to get your gun control and your kids are going to get murdered in the streets over and over again. I guarantee you that's what he's going to do.
Democrats are already rejecting calls for more security and single entry points for schools, refusing to concede single points of entry with multiple exits as possible. They only want gun control, which won't pass the Senate. That means that they want the issue, not a solution, tweeted talk show host Eric Erickson. Nobody's making Chuck Schumer do this, responded Jim Garrity of National Review. Gun control activists often complain that lawmakers squander momentum and public attention in the aftermath of a horrifying mass shooting, but it isn't the GOP that has a secret mind control rig that influences congressional Democrat leaders. Schumer, Pelosi, etc. choose this. Schumer wants more school shootings to benefit his fundraising, replied Andrew Pollack, father of the victim of the Parkland school shooting. Republicans put up a school safety bill. Chuck Schumer blocked it from a vote. But please continue to tell me this isn't all political. They won't even debate it and put it up for a vote. Don't like the bill? Vote no, tweeted talk show host Jason Rantz. Pathetic. We grovel for Republican votes to pass legislative scraps rather than fight to force a few members of our party to use their power to pass serious legislation to keep children from being slaughtered at school. Schumer has to go, said Kai Newkirk, a progressive activist. When this country suffers a horrible tragedy, one thing you can always count on is Senator Schumer will immediately break for another vacation without getting anything done, said Don Winslow. So, yeah, nobody liked Chuck Schumer at the time.
Now, some of my Republican colleagues want to lift up the community. That sounds heartening, but it does absolutely nothing to prevent the next family from having to grieve for their loss. And it won't do a single damn thing to prevent another life from being taken. It won't do a single damn thing to prevent another child from being shot at school, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, beautiful children. And, Madam President, you may have noticed that when they aren't offering thoughts and prayers to distract from their inaction, many of my Republican colleagues focus on the motives of the shooters instead of focusing on the obvious common denominator. They talk about the real villain being mental illness and say nothing of the fact that we are a nation suffocated by firearms.
See, the problem that I have with that, though, is that there are 330 million guns in this country, and collectively, probably only a couple thousand of them are used for a mass shooting, per se. And again, if I'd have gone and rushed into that school with what's in my truck, if I'd have seen that there was an active shooter going on, police doing nothing, and I would have taken up what I have for an armament and tried to intervene in and of myself, I probably would have died. But I still would have done something. I would sacrifice myself for kids. Apparently the police in Uvalde won't. Diversity hire touts Biden's decades of work on gun violence, but a reporter objects. Isn't that more of an indictment? Holy shit, we're running out of time. Press Secretary, token diversity hire, claimed Thursday that President Biden was uniquely qualified to handle the question of gun reform moving forward, citing his decades of experience in Washington and working to combat gun violence, but the New York Times White House correspondent Michael Shear objective. The New York Times correspondent. Let's listen.
And can do. You talk a lot about the outrage. You talk a lot about that he wants Congress to act. You talk a lot about the emotion. I was in this room. I think a lot of people here were too when President Obama cried at that very podium hours after the Newtown shootings. There have been a million shootings since then. Lots of expressions of outrage. lots of expressions of wanting Congress to act. They haven't. I mean, there are people out there, saw several of them on TV today, who say this president needs to do more than all of that. This president needs to declare a national emergency. He needs to create task forces. He needs to create, a czar of gun things. He needs to say he's not leaving this building. He cancel his vacations. Tell Congress, members from Congress to get in a room and not leave until they got a solution, and not accept some of the sort of half measures that are sort of being offered. And I guess the question is why isn't he doing any of that?
So on the public health, on the emergency, he has already done that. The president has already declared gun violence to be a public health epidemic. He has done that already, and he has mobilized our federal departments and agencies, including the Department of Health Services, to respond. So that has been done. Look, this is a president, as I've said already, who has been working on gun violence, gun reform, comprehensive gun reform, since he was a senator. And he also was there, as you're talking about, what President Obama had to deal with. He was there. He was his partner in that, and took on that portfolio of dealing with gun violence. He was there at the table.
Isn't that more of an indictment than it is a plus to say that the current president has been involved in this for more than for decades, and it's not being fixed. These things are happening over and over again.
But look, Michael, we are frustrated as well. We are angry as well.
We're frustrated, okay? But we're frustrated. But he's been trying for 47 years to get the gun control done. Well, why hasn't he had it done yet? I mean, God bless him for not getting it done. Obviously. Anybody who looks around this little apartment knows how happy I am that he didn't get it done, but such is life. This one, I know, we got to get through a few more of these. We're not going to get done because it's 10 after already, but there are just a couple more that I wanted to go over here. Up to this quartz one, for sure. Mark Fisher tweets out, and I reported this for disinformation, by the way. Now, by the way, if you and I go onto Twitter and say, I have questions about the holy jab, I don't think that it's everything that it's cracked up to be. And Susan, I'm using this as a hypothetical. I'm not actually saying that. Everybody should run out and get the holy jab. You'll be saved. It's a magical talisman that'll keep you from getting the horrible, horrible Trump disease. But if you and I were to go on to Twitter and question the efficacy of the holy jab, we would be banned, probably have accounts suspended, and thrown off the platform for disinformation. However, Mr. Fisher can come out here and put this tweet out there, and the article that goes with it. Invented for Nazi infantrymen, further developed by the U.S. military, the AR-15 was the Texas school shooter's weapon of choice. With the exception of the AR-15 was the Texas shooter's weapon of choice, everything in that sentence is a lie. Not just misinformation, not just disinformation, an outright lie. In fact, quite the opposite of everything. The AR-15 was invented by some stoner in the 60s, 17 years after the Nazi regime had fallen. Meanwhile, Volkswagen owners are sitting around here like, shit, he's not looking at me, right? Fuck. Okay, just gonna move on with our lives, and let's not talk about the Volkswagen that I drive. Or the space program, for that matter. From the Washington Post. The AR-15, America's rifle or illegitimate killing machine. From Mark Fisher. I believe the Ruger 223 would be America's rifle. But go on. The AR-15 military-style rifle that gunmen used to kill 17 people at a South Florida high school on Wednesday is at once ferociously powerful weapon. It's a middle-of-the-road weapon, I'm not going to lie. I've shot one before. A symbol of freedom and individualism, and an object despairing worry about the future of democracy. It is, depending on which political and social camp you belong to, America's rifle, a way to control your destiny, or a killing machine that has no legitimate place in civilian life. I noticed he put that and that in quotes, but not that. Every time a young man shoots up a school or other public gathering spot, the nation falls into a vituperative debate about whether the shooter's weapon and the culture surrounding it are a pernicious, uniquely American problem in need of swift remedy. The rifle, used in mass shootings in Newtown, Vegas, San Bernardino, and other grievous chapters, have become a barometer of the country's debates, not only about gun rights, but also the role of the individual, the proper limits on government, and the impact of video games, movies, and other forms of pop culture on young people. And yet we don't talk about Virginia Tech, because that didn't use the right gun. Or the myriad of other school shootings that popped up in 2018. We only talk about the one that happened in Parkland because the kid used the scary AR-15. There was a school shooting that involved a kid bringing a fucking revolver to school and a shotgun. Out the window in 12 hours. Nobody cared because it didn't have the right weapon in it. The AR-15 has come to carry connotations of heroism. A Remington ad said it gives you the confidence and firepower to get things done. Political resistance tighter regulations could let government subjugate Americans and make them live under tyranny, an NRA executive said. Fun, killing zombies before it was cool, reads another ad, and mass murder, high-capacity magazines have been used in more than half the mass shootings over 4 decades, according to several studies. Yeah, you need to go back and look down through the streets of Wacker Avenue again, if you think that's true. AR-15s and their cousins were among the nation's most popular and profitable weapons. The AR fires 1 bullet with each pull of the trigger, thus semi-automatic. But it's easily modified to shoot continuously until the trigger is released.
No, it's not.
A promotion for a $500 conversion device assures customers that a new drop-in trigger promises to turn your basic AR into a nearly full auto rifle.
No, it doesn't.
With no need for the onerous National Firearms Act licensing process.
That's also incorrect.
Nicholas Cruz, who police say confessed to the murders Thursday, bought his AR legally, according to Peter J. Forcelli, the special agent in charge of the Miami office of the Bureau of ATF. Meanwhile, having been reported numerous times to local authorities and the ATF for having mental issues, about 1.3 million assault rifles are sold each year, according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation study.
No, they're not.
The AR, initials come not from assault rifle, but from its original manufacturer Armalite, is a descendant of the machine guns Nazi infantrymen used against Soviet forces in World War II. That is also incorrect. There is nothing interchangeable between that and the machine-fed, either electric or liquid-cooled machine guns used by infantrymen in the Soviet forces in World War II. There is nothing, not one thing, interchangeable between these. In the US, the weapon traces its origins to a contract the Pentagon gave to the 1957 Armalite, which designed it from plastic and aircraft-grade aluminum rather than wood and heavier metal than the traditional rifles used. The most popular such weapon worldwide is the AR-15's Russian relative, the AK-47. Again, no commonalities between the two weapons. Or Kalashnikov, which dates to 1947 and has also been widely used by terrorists and mass murderers.
The AR, later renamed the M16, was designed to give U.S. soldiers the confidence their firearm would officially mow down the enemy. The M16 was the U.S.'s signature weapon in the Vietnam War. Its descendants, chiefly the M4 carbine, are the standard equipment to this day, except, again, there's no interchangeability between the two of these. On the civilian market, the AR-15 didn't sell terribly well for years, in part because of its connection with the Vietnam conflict, which was no one's idea of a model American greatness. Many gun enthusiasts didn't like the AR because it was so light. Some dismissed it as feeling like a toy. But it found new life in 2004 when George Bush allowed the ban on assault weapons that had been enacted under Clinton to die in 1994. And in 2005, Bush signed into law a measure protecting arms makers and dealers from liability for crimes committed with their products because they're not... that one pisses me off so much. There are 330 million armaments in this country. Only a handful of them have been used in mass shootings, comparatively. Most weapons in this country are used, held, and stored responsibly. So why would you sue the manufacturer? Like I said, if I was out shooting my Smith & Wesson and the bolt flew off due to a broken tab holding the bolt on mid-shot and drilled me in the middle of the forehead, the Smith & Wesson Corporation would be paying a large amount of money out to my parents. A large amount of money out to my parents, because that's something you can sue the manufacturer for. That is a defect. A deranged moron that was on the FBI radar, taking a gun, somehow passing his background check, and doing what he was on the FBI radar for, does not constitute a problem with the manufacturer. AR-15s flew off the shelves, sales spiked during the Obama admin, when the country suffered a flurry of mass shootings, which in turn led to calls by Democrats to reinstate the ban on assault weapons. Persistent campaigns by the NRA and many Republican supporters of gun rights spread the idea that Barack Obama intended to ban and confiscate Americans' firearms, leading to a massive surge in sales. Obama never launched such initiatives, but he had it in his primary agenda, by the way, which I read, and that's the reason that I stopped voting Democrat. Everything in this is a lie. This is gun control propaganda meant to scent readers of the Washington Post into a, they're going to call it insurrection again. The insurrection, it's going to be another insurrection. All right, and the last one we're going to do here today, and we'll save the rest of this for Monday, and it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a long show again on Monday, is this one. This, which didn't do what it was that they thought they would. Quartz, again, in misinformation form, claims, we ordered the same gun used in Uvalde. Here's how easy it was. From Quartz staff. Easiest, click, click, buy, they say. And there is the screenshot of it all, because it's not a link, we can't go back and try to order it itself. DDM4 V7, $1,870. Get financing for as low as $92.94 a month. Well, I guess I'm going to be applying for financing. After Tuesday's school shooting in Uvalde, Texas left 19 children and 2 adults dead, we wondered how difficult it was to order a DDM4 V7, one of the 2 rifles the gunman bought a few days after turning 18 years old, according to reports. The answer, 5 clicks. Those of you who have bought a firearm before already know that this is bullshit. The AR-style weapon made by Georgia-based Daniel Defense sells online for $1,870 plus applicable state and local taxes. Shipping to a local gun shop is free. After clicking place order, we received an email confirming the purchase, promising to send a tracking number once the gun was on its way to a pickup point. At no time were we asked for proof of age or of a clean criminal record, both of which are legally required to buy a firearm. That will happen when we pick the gun up at a local licensed dealer. Aside from that, it was a routine purchase, not unlike ordering a Lego set from Amazon or a pair of shoes from Zappos, except, of course, for the lethality of the product. Just ignore that part. Just ignore this part right here. We knew exactly what we wanted based on a copy of a receipt by the gunman shared online that was published by the Daily Dot, an Austin-based outlet that covers online culture. But undecided shoppers can watch a video highlighting the rifle's features. Weighing just over 6 pounds, it's extremely maneuverable and a perfect addition for anybody's gun safe, according to the host. There were also reviews, all 46 for the DDM-4V7, gave it 5 stars, including one that calls it a terrific weapon. Daniel Defense, which was founded by a garage door business owner in 2000, touts that most of the parts in its gun are made in-house. It's one of the U.S.'s largest privately owned gun manufacturers, according to Forbes. It's so easy. With just 5 clicks. And we have a Daniel Defense killing machine DDM-4V7. Just 5 clicks and we have it. Under Texas law, buyers of rifles have to be 18 or older and have no felonies or domestic violence convictions. And the federal government requires a background check. We didn't get any notices or warnings about that during the checkout process. Let's see. At no time were we asked for proof of age or a clean criminal record. Both were legally required to buy a firearm. That will happen when we pick the gun up at a local licensed dealer. I'm pretty sure that when you found out that when they looked for the address to go and ship it to, you realized that you were going to have to go and do something. I know that's how it is on Gunbroker. I've never ordered from Daniel Defense, by the way. So they may be right about that. But if you buy something from gunbroker.com, that's the first thing they say, is that all firearms must be shipped to a local FFL dealer and you must complete a background check before purchase. Texas Gun Experience, the local dealer we selected for pickup, tells shoppers to be ready to show ID and complete a 3-page form for the background check, which is done on the spot by an FBI database accessible from the gun shop. That's it. You'd ordered a gun. It won't be delivered to our doorstep like that Lego set or the pair of shoes, and to take it home, we'll have to fill out paperwork for a background check. In fact, you can't order it to your home, only to a licensed dealer. Still, the fact that shopping for a firearm does not feel noticeably different than the ordering of those everyday items is telling commentary on the prevalence of guns in U.S. culture. Except for the fact that you still have to follow the federal law. But see, they buried this part at the bottom of the article, because most of their simping fans would say, oh, we have to ban all the guns because they can go back and buy it online. Stop reading probably right about here. They saw this and like, oh, this is an ad. We're done reading the article. Oh, they could just buy it online. It could get shipped to them. You could actually buy a gun online and get shipped to your door. How horrifying, how horrible. And actually, Quest, before we go into the live chat here, because we got to finish off because it's already 9:30, does bring up an interesting point. Is some slacker going to be on the hook for this? Yeah, what's going to happen to the gun? Because I can tell you right now, the people at courts, the people that are writing for this particular publication, want nothing to do with this weapon, actually, other than just to prove a point of, oh, I could go buy a gun online. Alright. But with that, we are out of time for the day, so we'll have to catch up with the rest of it later.
We are going to go check in with the live chat and see what you guys are saying here. So let's back up and see how far we have to go here, because you guys are moving off the top here. Fanning is here, says I work hard and have valuable properties. I'm feeling the pain. Don't want to know how much folks without skills are coping with. Ron says nothing extravagant, and I missed the rest of it. Goats and Scarves is here. Says I've been thinking about canning hot dog water and selling it on eBay as Gamer Girl bathwater. Godspeed, my good capitalist. All right, we will move up to here and we'll check in with what we have going on from the past week. But if we've got to, we'll pick up with what Ron had to say. So this week in the chat, we had a fairly significant number of people here. On Monday, we had Quest Fanning, Ron Helton, Set of a Cantus Bear, Randy Crush Saga, Blind Fear, Baby Boy, Frank Verholes, Arvold, Job for 9 was here on Monday, and War Crimean L Gaming. New name in here. Thanks for coming and checking us out. By the way, one of the Twitch girls that I follow, girl that's playing New Vegas right now, followed me on Twitch as well over the week. So thank you, Mazo Minx, for the follow. I thought that was pretty cool of you. On Tuesday, we had Ron Helton, Spartan 0000 Superior. Man, I'm just looking down. I'm doing nothing but looking down the page. I feel like Corinne Jean-Pierre. Goats and Scarves, Set of a Cantus Bear, Randy Crush Saga, Job for 9, White is Right, who I believe, looking back in at what we have going on here. Oh, Ben Wild followed us too, by the way. White is Right got suspended because he followed, and then now his name on the stream feed says unknown user. Blind Fear and Arvold. Wednesday, Randy Crush Saga, Harvey McLeod, Vampire Hunter D, Gamer Jame, Quest Fanning, Sea of Noise, who is one of our detractors but came in to call our stream stupid right at the beginning on Wednesday. Brighten Eyes, Chocolate Milk Shit, wants to know how big our pink taco is. Goats and Scarves and Shalaga 1984. Oh, we gotta go catch up. Ron Helton says, I want to see her burn her Tesla just to show how really deranged she has become. Goats and Scarves here says, I'd gladly dispose of that Tesla for her. Quest says, those impressions are sometimes the highlight of my day. Well, I feel a little bit bad for that because you have a kid. Spartan 0000 Superior 1 is here and says, Elon Musk is total scum. Trump 2.0 said that there should be a special permit for assault rifles. Goats and Scarves said she admitted to being egotistical. Stop hitting on me, were her words after all. An 80s kid is here and says, ha, AOC says Musk has an ego problem, but she hasn't, lol. Alright, let's check in from Thursday with our weird connection issue that we had on Thursday. I think I got everybody. They were having some trouble collating the data throughout the streams, but I think I got everybody. On Thursday, we had Quest Fanning, Ron Helton, Jopper 9, Arvold, Goats and Scarves, Randy Crush Saga, MK Ultra Maga was here, Spartan 0000 Superior, and Chilaga 1984. Alright, let's finish out with what we have for the rest of the day. Spartan says Elon Musk supports taking away rifles, another globalist asset, grooming right-wingers to their own doom. Horatius is here. Horatius says, wonder if Musk is for his fellow white South Africans to have their rifles confiscated so they can be easily robbed, tortured, and murdered. The same will happen here if it happens. Horatius said, did Trump just say that about a special permit? I never caught the one where Trump had said that, so... Randy Crush Saga is here. Goats and Scarves says unemployment statistics are BS. Yes, they are. Fanning says my phone has been acting up. Randy says slowest pace since last time Biden was in the White House. That's a fair comparison. Absolutely. Goats and Scarves says I'm pretty sure they're based on people collecting unemployment insurance. Doesn't account for all the people that don't qualify or people that ran out of UI benefits. That is correct. Ron Helton says, Russia, Russia, Russia. Damn Demrats are always singing the same old tune. Fanning says, I think the coup in Kazakhstan was over lack of potassium. There's an Africa joke there, but I don't know what it is. I know it's there, I just don't know what it is. Nephilim Ninja is here. Lots of fun for next year. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. Neff says they aren't stocking fish hatchery lakes in Northern California this year because reasons. Randy talking about the e-girls, especially since once they have any level of success, their content is posted all over the internet. Yes, there are a few people out there that I know, there are girls that I know that have OnlyFans that I've been curious, so I Googled what was out there for their images. And yeah, there is really no point in them having an OnlyFans because you can find it for free. Goat says that and e-girls on Twitch that prey on mentally weak men to shell out money to listen to them slurp an ear-shaped microphone. Amaranth, we're talking to you. I've watched an Amaranth stream, and that's really weird. Randy says, yes, but vices remain consistent and or grow during recessions. Arvold says, guys watching OnlyFans are incels and resent women who murder babies because they're having so much sex. That's a fair point. Goats and Scarves. I'm cute and fun. I don't know how to think critically and have nothing to contribute to society. Spartan, with his authoritarian right idea of things, OnlyFans should be banned and criminalized. Profit from all porn. Thank you, Spartan. Ron Helen says, coming soon, cannibalism, finding and preparing choice cuts. Disavow. Randy says, guys who are perverts and borderline pay her for sex found out that she wants to kill babies and left because they felt that was too immoral. Ron says, brought to you by the totalitarian douchebags that created this economic disaster. Randy says, the irony is that plenty of the girls who end up featured on that Twitter will see a bump in subs due to the exposure. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. Because as we saw with that, he's blocking out the names. Whoever's running this one, I don't know if it's a he or a she, but whoever it is blocking out the names. So unless you do a deep, like, reverse picture search for something, you're not going to be able to. Well, we've got the name here, and you might be able to search Teacher Bay and find that person, but yeah, they are blocking out the names. So there's a possibility they may have anticipated that and tried to find a way back around. Goats and Scarves says, I heard one parent was put in cuffs and another parent got thrown to the ground by police. Spartan says, cops had to contain the parents from the Fed shooter. And then he says, that's an hour and 12 minutes. That's enough time for me to go buy a rifle and deal with the shooter. Son of a Cantus Bear is here and says, Mia is a Fed. MK Ultra Mega is here. Happy Friday. He's lurking. MK is probably on a river somewhere for Memorial Day, and same place the rest of us should be. Job for 9 is here. In the all caps. Good morning, everyone. Randy says, a lot of them died at the hospital, so more might have survived. Randy is apparently a former medic, and I'm speaking from personal experience in the area of gunshot wounds. Ron says, he was in there for an hour. Was he watching The View? I mean, he's already killing the kids. Does he have to torture them too, the survivors? APC Burring Net followed. Welcome, APC. Randy says, my question is, where's that girl from Run, Hide, Fight when we needed her? Haven't seen that movie. I can't I can't bring myself to give Ben Shapiro that kind of money. Spartan says a dead body was able to fight off cops for 4 hours. Yeah, if you ever pop in the voice on Discord, I'll tell you more details of that story. Shilaga's here, sup regulars. Frank Frijoles is here with the vaccine Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah. Sed says, I can understand why Shooter would shoot the teachers, but why didn't he wait for a teacher workday where there'd be more around? Ben Wild is here. How does an 18-year-old afford a new truck and 3,000 in rifles and ammo? Well, it was like 5,000 in rifles and ammo, but it was an older truck, so it was like a couple of grand for the truck, and it was his grandma's. Ben Wild has been to Uvalde and has watched the Coyotes play. Hanny1167 is over on the Instagram side and throwing hearts. Thank you for that. Spartan says, I looked at the job app for 911 operators. What a joke. Only need a GED. You have people who are stupid as fuck taking 911 calls. There was, apparently there was a rumor that I never confirmed that a woman who was working for the Buffalo 911 during that shooting hung up on somebody because she couldn't deal with it. We're all Uvalde now. Sedevicamtus says 109% guarantee the longer those cops waited outside, the greater the likelihood of kids being molested by public school teachers inside. Spartan, I can't read that one on YouTube. Quest Fanning says, I missed most of the show with marital responsibilities. Nice. Ben Wild says, where's David Hogg? He wasn't right there. And I said, he's still on his bike, riding, trying to get there. And I hope Arvolt makes a meme out of David Hogg riding his bike, trying to get to Uvalde. Pineapple Pizza 143 is here. Hi. What are we discussing? We were discussing Uvalde when you came in. Now we're reading live chat. Quest Fanning says, when the destructive 94 crime bill's assault weapons ban sunsetted, there was not a spike in deaths. 80s Kid says, Fart Knocker Brandon is so old, his dreams are in black and white. Come on, man! Goats and Scarves. Pineapple Pizza 143. How does pineapple does not belong on pizza? I gotta part with you, Goats and Scarves. I'm a big fan of the pineapple pizza. Sausage, onion, and pineapple is my ideal pizza. Always has been. People are arguing why letting people have guns improved security. Goats and Scarves. Yeah, pretty good political topic. Thank you, Pineapple. Spartan says Biden will send billions of dollars in weapons to Ukraine, USA doing war after war, but my AR-15. Where's my cursor? Oh, my battery died. That's why. Battery died in the mouse. Hang on. Technical issues. Plug in the charger. The regret for buying a rechargeable mouse. Come on, you fucking whore. I just said I need to clean up my language so that we can compete more often with the AM radio people who have their kids in the car that are taking them to school. And then I called my mouse a fucking whore. The dichotomy of man. Yeah, Sedevicamtus says conservatives looking for cheap labor for the chores to Uvalde. Warner Brom Brom talking about the rifles. Goat says, what are they going to think when they realize I was born in Germany? Pineapple Pizza says, did I hear democracy? Well, this isn't a democracy here. This is a dictatorship. And I'm the dick. 80s Kid says, I'm in the UK, 52, and I've only seen a real gun once. That was about 20 years ago. Well, once we get through the commie coof bullshit, you get through customs, you buy a ticket, and we'll put some guns in your hands. You won't be able to take them home, obviously, but we'll put a couple in your hands and let you see how they feel. Setup Camp says MS-13 and their cousins at DNC did Fast and Furious and 9/11. Goats and Scarves says Black liberals. Just want to take this moment to remind you that a massacre of primarily Hispanic children just occurred, that black lives still matter. Spartan says Nazi has to be put in everything bad. This Nazi soup. It's a better way to say the soup is bad. Banning says, I'm wearing a bright orange. My AR-15 identifies as a bolt-action t-shirt in the middle of Brooklyn today. Ben Wild says, oh, you mean if you were shooting an early-gen Beretta M9 whose slides randomly came off? Yeah, that too. Arvold, everything is a lie. Shocked face. Banning says, with the luxury of time, I've reviewed it repeatedly. Sorry to sound cynical, but if someone tried to stop me from protecting my daughter, I'd have to shoot them on the face. Ben says, if they ordered it online, it still has to be picked up by an FFL. Sedivacanta says, Quartz, the name to trust in an ever-changing interweb of propaganda. Quest says, this isn't doxing, but I know it's bad to say, it's just the truth. Goats and Scarves says, use discount Quartz for... What did Goats say before? Did I miss something? No, apparently not. Use discount Quartz for 10% off. Spartan says AR Atomic Rocket. Ben Wild says, you know how they know don't know jack shit about guns? Look at that forearm drop. Grip nothing screams gender confusion like a forearm grip. Quest Fanning likes modular design in general, but I prefer greater reliability. Spartan says, in 2 clicks you can watch live porn. What's the point of this argument? Yeah, going right back to the OnlyFans argument again. Ben says, every gun I've gotten from a manufacturer is still shipped to an FFL for pickup. You have to appear in person to pick it up and take the background check. Spartan says, in 2 clicks an underage person can watch live porn. I'm sure the left supports this. Quest says, well, that's healthy, Spartan. Didn't you hear? Sedivacanta says, get a federal background check and start your very own FBI domestic surveillance file on yourself. Promo code Quartz. Ben says, can you imagine buying Legos where you have to fill out forms, provide ID, and go to a dealer in person? Quest says, I was pretty psyched when I started getting the liquor delivered. That's heavy. Sedivacanta says, 3D black powder revolvers, Uber allies. Goats and Scarves says, they'd get PTSD if they walked into the gun shop. Yes. Hot dog bathwater. Yup. Now we're circling back to comments on the stuff from the beginning. Quest says, more than one Uber capital here. If you ain't here, you're 109% more likely to be queer. Well, get some more friends in here. I want to see if we can get to 20 live viewers at some point next week. I'm going to see if I can find a way to post the cross-platform live viewer count on the screen. You guys came together when I tried to get affiliated on Twitch, so I know you can do it. I know you guys can get 20 viewers in here in a week. Together, your combined effort. So all I have to do is ask. So let's see if we can next week get 20 combined viewers in. Quest Fanning says hot dog water is what I call dog farts. Sedivacanta Bear says dog farts are less tolerable than public school teacher shootings. Quest Fanning has a compliment for Goats and says, Goats has been a good recent addition. Quest says, I love my daughter, but those are great impressions. Horatius gets it hard, says Setup Cantus. Arvel says, whether the impressions are perfect or not, they're consistent in quality. Thank you. Elon Musk said that about special permit for rifles. Yeah, I saw that. And I put the Chad no face on there. Quest says, my friend's white South African dentist father-in-law experienced home office invasion. They played Russian roulette on his wife for fun. I appreciate Nelson Mandela. He should have freed more deserving people. APC Burring Net is from Australia. Welcome, APC. APC Burring Net. Well, we just talked about that, but in the short answer, my answer is give more people the ability to shoot back. Setup Cantus says, Pinterest is poor now. Bastards place a suggestive slut tit pic on every page of garden ideas. They're pro-abortion. Fuck Pinterest. Arvel, good day, IPC. That's as much Australian as I know. Goats and Scarf says, I saw somebody with a take run hide fight is what's inspiring school shootings. Well, given the fact I came from the Daily Wire and people can't handle differing opinions, I could believe that. Quest says, usually try to find my way to the middle of nowhere, cheaper to stay there on a holiday weekend, but we're doing a ton of work building in the yard. Horatius is back. Horatius says Mandela was a terrorist who was behind the bombings of a school that killed white children, and the way that he was caught was the CIA tracked him down because he was working with the Soviets. Look up the video of Mandela doing the Kill the Boer song. He was an evil SOB. I hope he's burning in hell. Quest says, I still enjoy Invictus as fiction. Ben Wild says, I'm not a gun owner. I'm a Ukraine freedom fighter protecting Maryland from the Russians. That's a good way to look at it. I can't do that one, Horatius. Horatius says, when they finally come for the guns, it's game on. Nobody wants that except for them. Well, yes, and when they come to confiscate the guns, some freedom fighter, quote unquote, in Ukraine is going to get a shiny new Smith & Wesson. Slightly used. Ben says, well, I'll try to kick you up to 20, but I keep getting banned. A Bezos-owned platform banning somebody who has wrongthink? I don't believe that. Ben Wild says apparently telling the internet face account that you destroy her cervix and bruise her ovaries goes against the community standards. I am not going to ask for any more details on that. Quest says, I'm less active than I used to be on Twitter. I'm under 1 million views a month now, but I do what I can to get the word out. My 11.8 thousand followers do tend to show up, if only a tiny fraction of a percent. Quest says, we can see Russia from here, Sarah Palin. One time at band camp. And with that, I think we're done. I think we're out of here. Let's throw some outro music in. Holy shit, it's 8 minutes to 10. I gotta get the fuck out of here. We're late. All right, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in live chat. We're going to have to do an abbreviated outro on this one here. So we'll be back here on Monday for more contemporary. Come back and join us. No streams over the holiday weekend, so go back and enjoy your time out in the outdoors with family and friends, but come back and join on Monday. For more contemporary, we'll be doing more news headlines, more talk about what happened over the weekend, more kind of stuff that they try to jam in over the weekend as people were paying attention to floating down the river and etc.
I'm sure there'll be a lot more, plus everything else that we have gathered up here after the Quartz article as well. So looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing you then, and looking forward to having more hanging out and more conversations. And until next time, we will see you then. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.